Alright, hey everybody. Can someone just post if you can hear me or see my screen? Alright, sounds good. Alright, so I'm going to first go through MindMed and then also go through a cryptocurrency that is actually having that 5-minute oversold bounce that I was talking about in my video yesterday, just to show you an example. So you can see that in real time happening right now, and we'll go through MindMed and all the psychedelic stocks at the same time. And I guess it's actually playing out right now, so I'm going to cover that first. So the 5-minute oversold bounce that I was talking about yesterday, that is looking for an hourly higher low, as I was describing, where on the hourly time frame we kind of just went up straight without having any consolidation, and same thing happened today. We've went up and we have not had hourly consolidation. So I look for the 5-minute oversold condition to look for that hourly higher low. So I'm going to look at Matic USDT. I have no idea what they do, but it's just a cryptocurrency, and it's kind of just doing crazy stuff similar to MindMed, where it's going up like crazy. So going to the hourly time frame, we've gone up pretty hard. We pulled back, we went up, and now we're pulling back to get an hourly higher low. And this is what I mean where I want to look for an entry. So on the 5-minute chart, let me get rid of some of these lines. Okay, so we had a big move up all the way to all-time highs, and then the first 5-minute oversold condition. So we got first 5-minute oversold. So I actually made an entry just before starting this live stream, so we can kind of watch this play by play as we go through my entries in and around there. So I'm planning on exiting this by the end of the stream probably. So this is kind of the same concept that I'll be applying to MindMed whenever that happens. It's just it's a safer trade where I have a stop level to work off of, and that's kind of why I do it. So let's jump over to MindMed. All right, so massive day, 32%. I'm hoping everybody is happy, and for those that didn't get in and are still trying to get in, even though you may have missed on a lot of this run, there's going to be a lot of volatility. So if it's your first time investing, be careful. Don't invest, obviously, whatever you can't lose. So take care of that first. So daily time frame, we gapped up, and we can potentially expect another gap up tomorrow. Now, if we do end up gapping up, we may end up passing all-time highs. If we do, that's obviously really great. But I like to have a scenario where we actually slice through the price of all-time high, like the 647 level, and these are all Canadian numbers. I would rather us be in the middle of the trading day and pass through 647 than for us to gap up over it. Because as an example, like imagine it's a fight between bulls and bears. It's a karate match, and these guys are fighting. And if we just gap up open, it's kind of like the bulls just busting out a knife in a karate fight and just kind of winning, and like the bears just back off. So it's better if it's just a real fight, in my opinion, where they battle it out and the bulls win. That proves more to me that bulls are in control, whereas gapping up, not as much. But now with the fact that we have uplisting happening, there might be, I think there is pre-market trading on the Nasdaq. So the Americans are a little bit lucky in the sense that they'll be able to trade MindMed before Canadians can, because MindMed, the trading starts at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and you don't get to trade before that. On the Nasdaq, people will be able to trade MNMD before 9:30. I think it starts at 8 o'clock, and it's low volume and it's messy to trade in that, but there is going to be pre-market. So in the future, be careful. The open of MindMed or MMED is going to be determined by MNMD. So we have currently gone up 110% in 2 days. So that is massive gains, and we are due for consolidation, and it may not happen tomorrow, it may happen tomorrow. There's a few things that might happen. It could be a sell the news event. Everyone knows that the uplisting is happening Tuesday. So what happens on Tuesday? Who's left to buy? So there could be, you know, Robinhood traders or other traders that don't have access to OTC, where MMEDF is, or whatever, the OTC ticker. So the people that couldn't trade it, that only have access to OTC, those people might be entering. But everybody else already knows and will probably enter today, would have entered on Friday or today. So that has me a little bit worried, but even if it's a sell the news, I'm good with it. So let's go to the hourly time frame. So we have our resistance level at 647, which is all-time high, and we're going to have resistance of today's 611, and that's obviously if we open below these levels. If we gap up, both of these points are going to be completely, you know, irrelevant. And if it's a gap up, then personally I will likely be taking profit on my position, just because I'm expecting a sell the news, and that's just how I want to play it, just to be safe, because I mean 100% gains, I'm not going to let that go. And yeah, like, this has been an amazing year for me, so I don't want to mess that up. And in terms of us gapping up, if we do gap up, there's a pattern, and you guys can Google this after. I don't know what it's called, but it's when you gap up 3 times in a row, on the 4th day is very likely to see a pullback if you don't already get it before the 4th day. So if we gap up tomorrow and we stay strong, the day after that is very likely to have a pullback. So I just saw a question about if it is sell the news, what's my re-entry target? So today we didn't get that 5-minute oversold bounce that I was talking about. So I'm still looking for that. As soon as that happens, like, I will feel fairly confident to start making entries. And it's not like, let me go all in as soon as we get, you know, RSI under 30. Like, I'm gonna go back to Matic right now. So we started getting 5-minute oversold pretty much up here. So we dropped another 4% before the bottom was found. So if I just, you know, went all in up here, I would be underwater and I'd be kind of freaking out. So I started making entries when we got a little bit oversold, but you gotta always have ammo, because stock market does what stock market wants. So if we keep dropping, you don't want to run out of your ammo, and your ammo is your money. So what I do is I'll scale in entries, and then as soon as I see momentum shift, that's when I'll buy with a bigger chunk. And that's what I'm currently doing with this trade as we speak. So I have exit targets at the 0.38, at 0.5, and at the golden pocket. So if the price passes all three of these levels, I'll be entirely out of my position. So I may do something similar to that with MindMed, or I will probably just hold and see if we get to another new all-time high. And this is something that I'll play, you know, every hour, and seeing how momentum is moving and how the market's doing. So I'll be checking all of that out during the day. But yeah, currently into the end of the day, we pretty much just had a 15-minute equilibrium. So we had the low of day. We went to the high, and then we pulled back to 535. Went up to 603, dropped down to 562, topped out at 597. So this is just essentially a tightening range. So we went up like that, tightening. So, you know, in a normal world, you would continue to tighten and break out one way or the other. And you can use these levels as an area to buy, and the opposite can be an area as your stop loss, or you can try to make an entry above the previous support to, like, go long. So let's get rid of some of these lines. So as an example, entries could be made in this area, expecting this support to hold of 562 to try to hold for it to bounce and break these levels. And if we do break all-time high, after that, there's no resistance. So literally it could go anywhere. It can go to 10 bucks, it can go to 15 bucks, it can go to 20 bucks. Wouldn't surprise me. I think it's unlikely for it to go to 15, 20 bucks, at least tomorrow. But if we do break to all-time highs, that's when price just literally slices through butter and anything is possible. So all-time highs are a really fun place to be. And especially now that the dilution scare is a little bit out of the way, I think it's going to be it'll be more fun, I think, if it does happen. But you always got to remember to have a game plan. If your plan is to hold for multiple years, don't bother looking at the chart all the time. If you're in it for a trade and you want to make a quick buck, you need to have a plan. Where are you selling? If you want to sell at $9, sure, put that order in now. And this is not financial advice, but this is something that I would do. If my plan was I want to sell at $9, I would put my order now, like at $8.99. Because when it starts going up, it's very easy to get caught up in the greed. It's like, man, this thing moved up so quickly, so easily, it's going to go more. And what ends up happening is you hold something through, it goes all the way up, you're still holding, you get very excited, and then it starts pulling back, and it's like, okay, it'll bounce back, I don't want to sell now, I had way more money, and it keeps coming back down, it goes back, right back. What if it comes right back to $5? You may feel a little bit betrayed, and then you become a bag holder, and you end up holding this for multiple years when your plan was to just trade it. So if your plan is to just trade, make sure you have that written down, place your orders, put your stop loss or whatever it is. But if you're holding for long term, don't bother. Okay, I'm just going to scroll up and kind of start from the top. Just check that. Okay. So $15 by April. It's possible. I think it's unlikely, but if we break to all-time highs, it can happen, and I'm happy if it gets there. So, Mike, I'm curious to see if your 5-minute chart strategy worked with RSI levels. So, it doesn't necessarily, it didn't work or not work, it just didn't happen yet. So, this is the thing, this is what I was mentioning in the video yesterday too. We're looking for hourly consolidation, and one of the things I mentioned was I'm expecting hourly consolidation, so that, and to look for that, I look for 5-minute oversold conditions here. But I mentioned it can happen, excuse me, it can happen way later. We can keep going up, and then it'll happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. It can happen all the way up at $12. I don't know. I don't know when that 5-minute oversold play is going to happen, but that is a safer play for me. It's consistent and it works for me. So that's what that's a kind of a set play that I have in my playbook. And when that happens, I'm going to take it. And I may or may not be aggressive depending on how the overall market is at the time. Or in that moment. Now, I don't know what else I want to say to that. So yeah, it hasn't played out yet. And so in terms of RSI, so using the 5-minute RSI and all these, so right now we got RSI completely overbought. And when you have significant news like this with uplisting, and there's a lot of hypes with Reddit and with everything, with Wall Street bets, RSI kind of goes out the window when it's for the overbought side. And if we get into all-time highs, RSI again is going to be thrown out the window. And that's where specifically the overbought RSI gets thrown out the window, whereas I still use the oversold to look for entries. So if we break 647, the 5-minute, the hourly, the daily, the weekly, all of the overbought RSIs, so when RSI is above 70, thrown out the window, doesn't matter what it does. It can go to 90, it can go to 100, doesn't really matter. And you generally, like I personally never short something that's in all-time highs because it can keep going and you'll get squeezed. Raider, good job. 500 shares today. Make sure you have a plan if it's a trade and not a long-term investment. Yeah, so selling shares today to cover your initial investment and gonna hold the rest of your shares to see what happens. That is a very good thing that I love doing as well, where if my initial investment's out and now it's just kind of house money in there, let it run. And that's kind of what my core position is at this point. It's actually less than the profits that I've made, but it's just a smaller amount that I'm very comfortable with, where it can drop 50% or whatever. I don't care what happens. I went live when Meet Kevin's live. Yeah, this is the only time I had, so. So here's the thing. I don't mind buying at these levels as long as it's for me, because if I'm buying a position, it's for a trade. It's not for a long-term hold. This is not where I'm buying long-term positions. Literally 3 weeks ago, I made a video, not time to sell MindMed. And I didn't say buy MindMed, but it's kind of read between the lines where that's a better opportunity to be buying stuff long-term than it is when your RSI is now overbought. Like within 2 days, we went from pretty much 30 RSI to 77. So longer term entries for me are when we have, longer term time frames, RSIs oversold. The weekly, the daily, whatever it may be. So if it's sell the news, what's your re-entry strategy? I think I mentioned this one. So that's the 5-minute oversold that I'll be looking for. Thank you, SX. Appreciate it. I hope MindMed hits 15 bucks. Am I going to cover this tomorrow? Maybe. Might not have the time, but I'll see if I can either come live or make a video. It takes a lot of work, honestly. Do the charts get reset when MindMed gets listed? So I don't think so. In the past, when I've seen things get uplisted, the old chart will generally show right onto your new one. The first day, things are generally fairly glitchy and stuff gets messed up the first day at least. So, some markets may open a little bit later, like on some brokers. Some brokers may not have the pre-market trading set up. TradingView might not have all the data transferred over. So it might take a day, but in general, in the future, the MMEDF chart will get merged with the MNMD. So it'll have the history. MMED on the Canadian side is going to stay the same, no changes. Let's do 25. I'm down for 25 bucks, man. Where am I selling? So I don't know what price that I'm going to be selling at. It's going to be pretty much based on how price action is moving at the moment during the day tomorrow. So since I have MMED on the Canadian side, I will not have access to pre-market trading. So I'm at the mercy of just waiting until 9:30 to see where it opens and how the price moves. So if we gap up and, like I explained actually in my video yesterday. So yeah, so it didn't end up working out here. Let's see if it worked out here. Nope. Okay, so pretty much what I like to do is wait for the initial range to be set, and that's pretty much what happened today. So the initial range got set in the first 10 minutes. So we're on the 5-minute chart. Each candlestick represents 5 minutes. Let me zoom in a little bit. Let's get rid of that line. Okay, so we started off the morning, we dropped a little bit to 490, and then we jumped all the way to 611 in the first 10 minutes. For me, that's the established range of the day. So if we ended up breaking 490, that would be a red flag for me, and that would tell me that, hey, the top is set. And so right in the first 15 minutes, I was able to establish that this is our range. So at 9:45, I was like, okay, I know the bottom of today. If this holds, we're okay. And if we break 611, we're going to be rocketing further up. So right in the morning, I had started taking profit between $5.50 and $6. And if we broke and if we pulled back at 6:45 and we started going back up, at 6:12, I was going to re-enter my entire position because we were going to keep going up the rest of the day. But we didn't, so I did not enter. So tomorrow, same concept. If we set an initial range in the first, it could be in the first 5 minutes, but today it was in 10 minutes. Once we set that range, that's when I'm going to be determining what I want to do. And it might be like a lot of times I'm actually looking at the 1 minute chart in the morning. So yeah, pretty much right here at 9:42, for me, it's like 611 is our top and we need to hold 490. So I'm expecting an equilibrium, how I talk about all the time. So this was an expected area to potentially enter, and I didn't, but that's something that I might be playing tomorrow. Whatever this range is, if we break the bottom, I will potentially exit. And if we break the initial high after consolidating, like if we consolidated and just went right back up, I would buy that break at 612, and hope that we keep going. If we break it by like a few pennies and then pull back, I'll get out really quickly. So I am very quick to move in either direction depending on how I see price action moving. Mike, is it possible for MindMed to go to 15? Yes, it's possible. Does it happen? I don't know. Stock market literally does what it wants. I have no control. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. Honestly, if Wall Street Bets is all on like Robinhood, there's potential that a lot of people are going to be buying tomorrow if they don't have access to OTC. I feel like that's pretty much the only catalyst left for tomorrow. Otherwise, everybody else is in. And pretty much everyone that got in a lot of people are probably traders, and they're probably going to exit after some significant gains. Like, man, after 100%, what else do you want? Well, at least for me, sorry. I FOMO a lot, so I need to stay in a position. Yeah, so anti-FOMO positions, exactly why I do it. I feel FOMO, and that's why I have pretty much a set number of shares or a relative dollar amount that I say, okay, this is what I'm just going to keep holding. Goes down, goes up, whatever. Even if I'm like very confident about what it's going to do from a technical analysis point of view, I'll just keep it there because I'm like, if it's that the unlikely scenario, I'd rather just have that to prevent me from feeling FOMO. Did you say that if it hits all-time high, or did you say it will hit, English. Did you say if it hits all-time highs, it will pull back to $5? I mean, you see the $5 is the average daily stable price in the upcoming weeks. No, I just said $5 randomly. So when you go up this hard, you're very likely to get a pullback as well. Like, same thing with up here. If you looked at this chart just like this, you don't know where it's going to top out, right? It can keep going or it can pull back. And this is why you have to be prepared for either scenario to happen. Like, on this pullback, we didn't know how far it was going to pull back. So same thing that's going to happen here. We don't know how far this is going to go up. It can go to $15 or $10, but then it's going to have a pretty big pullback whenever it does happen. And that I'm fairly confident of. It's just, I don't know when it's going to happen, and nobody does. I want to hold long term, but I would love to take some money off the table. What is your thought on taking money off the table? I invested and them letting it, and then letting it ride, letting the rest ride. Do you ever do that? Yes. So there are some stocks where I like to have long-term holding positions, and when RSI gets to certain areas or I reach a certain price, I will take stuff off the table. So you never lose money taking profit. So there's no risk in taking profit, in my opinion. Yeah, you might leave stuff on the table, but at least you've realized that gain. The amount of times I've seen people with, you know, unrealized gains that go 100,000, 200,000, $1 million, but they end up riding it all the way back down. So it's like, take some off the table, and if you have life-changing money, change your life. Do you suggest picking up more shares as a swing and selling it in a week timeline? Personally, for me, I would not be making swing entries right now. I don't make swing entries when daily RSI is oversold. Overbought. So personally, no. The time to be entering for swing positions is when everybody else is looking to sell. So literally on Reddit, scroll back into even just like the MindMed chats or the subreddits. There were people posting, hey, you know, I'm thinking of selling, or did anyone expect this to happen? Why are we going down? Everyone's looking for explanations. That was fear in the market. That's fear in MindMed. That's fear in the psychedelic space. Those are better times to be making swing entries than it is when we're in hype and euphoria and everyone's excited and talking about yachts. So personally for me, not making swing entries up here. I will not be covering it tomorrow morning, but I will be posting on Twitter whenever I can. And my Twitter is just Mike G. Sorry, I'm late here. What was the dilution scare and why is that out of the way? And is it likely that new shares will be issued soon after the uplisting? Okay, so you can go back and watch my video, my first like MindMed video from December, like I don't know when it was, December 9th or something. And the thumbnail says, don't buy MindMed. And that's when I just started my channel. So at that point we were running up like crazy. And this was it's kind of a new sector. And it was essentially a penny stock jumping up to $5. And when that happens, especially with a new company, they need money to fund all their activities. So in that video, I was just talking about how we need to be a little bit cautious. We're running up and we will be getting dilution news. I didn't know when, but it was very likely. So everything that I say is not like, hey, this is exactly how it's going to happen. Everything that I talk about is based on odds. The likely scenario, the unlikely scenario. So at that time, I was thinking it's likely that we're going to get dilution. So, you know, it's a little bit scarier. So that's what I was saying back in December. Now on this way, now we're running up again. I don't have as much fear of dilution because we got a lot of that out of the way to qualify to be able to uplist. Now it doesn't mean that it won't happen. It can definitely happen. It's smart to dilute when your shares are inflated, when the price is inflated. Are you scooping up others in the sector right now? No, so I'm not adding here for swings. It's if I'm like for NUMI or TRIP, I may enter those just for trading, but not for swing entries here. Holding 7,800 at 136. What do you think I should do? I have no idea. Depends on what your plan is. If you want to hold this long term, different plan. If you want to hold this for a few weeks, different plan. If you want to swing trade, day trade, make a quick buck, it really depends. Because there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody has their own strategy, you're in your own financial position. So there's never a one rule fits all. what happens to my OTC shares when MindMed goes on Nasdaq? So your OTC shares, from my understanding, is simply going to change tomorrow and say MMND or MNMD. And that's about it. So what happens sometimes is brokers get a little bit delayed or they get confused, and sometimes there's issues just for the first day. But in general, by the end of the week, it'll say MNMD. Am I going live for the uplisting? I will not. Do you ever use Scholastics or Scholastic RSIs? No, I did try to use those in the beginning when I started trading. When I started trading, I tried like all the different indicators, and my chart was really messy and I had a whole bunch of things on it. I found that I pretty much work best off of just RSI and my EMA lines, and they provide me with all the information and the stuff that I need to kind of anticipate moves, see where things are going to top out and not. So here's still our 5-minute back burner. We're trying to see 5-minute RSI bounce, sorry, the 5-minute oversold bounce play out. So it's still happening here. Do NUMI. Okay, let's do it. So NUMI. Oh, damn, that's surprising. Okay, so we have our low down at 74 cents. We have next resistance up here. Let's look at our weekly. Okay, so all-time high 245. Next one's 195. And in yesterday's video, mentioned that it's more likely that MindMed's closer to all-time highs than NUMI. So it makes sense that we're not seeing as much of a run. Maybe when MindMed calms down a little bit and kind of trades a little bit sideways, then some of these smaller cap names will run as well, but that's yet to be seen. So that's a little bit concerning of a candlestick. We tried to move up and we ended up closing near the low of day, and that's not ideal for the bulls, but I mean, we gapped up and we're still up there, so that's fine. Hourly time frame, let's take off extended hours. So we still held the low of day, which is good. So this was the low of day established in the first hour of trading at 115, and we set the high in the second hour at 125. Let's go to the 5-minute time frame. So it was in a tightening range and an equilibrium that we talk about in like every video. So there's your equilibrium, but we broke it at the end of the day. And I think the S&P 500 was weak into the close, so that might be what caused this, but it's still within the initial range of the day. So nothing really much here. Tomorrow this can gap up or gap down. It's unlikely for it to gap down, but if MindMed gaps up, this might as well. And if we don't, then we want to use these two ranges, the 125 and the 115 as our guide. So potential entries can be made if we open in the low here, near the low, and I would be placing a stop loss at 114. So just below 115, because if we break 115, it's possible that we're going further down, so I would want to stop out. And this would be a good risk to reward. There's low risk in terms of how much you're risking. It's like a 3-4 cent risk. And what I would be playing for is the potential for 125 to break. So the potential upside is greater than the potential loss there. All right. Do you think that if trading hadn't halted near the open, momentum may have been better? No, I don't think so. Halts are very normal. When things move very quickly, things halt. Mike, are you trading other psychedelic stocks for a sympathy play? Not really. The dollar volume's in MindMed, and I really like it when a stock has a lot of volume because it's very easy for me to use bigger positions and get in and out very easily. Whereas if I go in with a full position on these smaller cap names like Cybin, for example, I would move the price, and I don't want to do that because that's a lot of slippage for me, and it's going to be hard for me to get out of my position. So with MindMed, like I can have the bid and ask have a lot of shares on it, so I can, use a bigger amount of capital. Life-changing money, yeah, I can tell you 136K shares of MindMed, bringing a lot of psychology of trading in my life. Yeah. Yeah, like when you go 100% and you've made a shit ton of money, change your life. Do you have a long-term position? Entered last summer at 33 cents, waiting for the right time to take out my initial investment. So I've been in and out of my long-term investment. I have difficulty holding long-term just because when I see a chart do something that just doesn't make sense to me, I will usually exit. Like I had a long-term position from the 80-cent range, and I ended up selling that at like $5 on this one of these days. And I didn't really reestablish that. I messed around, traded a lot, and I made more. So even when we were here 2 days ago, my account was at all-time highs, and it was higher than what my account was when we were back here. So it's because I have the ability to kind of maneuver myself. I do this, but there's plenty of times where I regretted not just keeping a long-term position. And I will probably, I could just keep the ones that I established back here. So my core position now, I can consider it from back here when I started entering at daily oversold. I don't know what those two tickers are. Are they Psychedelic, Franco? When my MindMed shares on OTC convert to MNMD on Nasdaq, do they convert to US dollars? Okay, so MMED is on the Canadian side, and it's on the NEO exchange. This does not change. So whatever's happening for anyone trading with Canadian dollars, nothing changes for you, like at all. You're still using the same ticker, and you're still trading on the NEO exchange. The change that's happening is only for the ones that are on the OTC that are using US dollars. It is changing from the over-the-counter to the Nasdaq. So the thing that affects the Canadians is before the OTC opens at 9:30, the NEO opens at 9:30. So it was you knew at 9:30 that's when you need to check the price. What changes now is the US gets a little bit of a head start, and they can start trading at 8 o'clock essentially if you have access to the pre-market. So Canadians will be, you won't be able to buy or sell before 9:30. Americans will. And price can move before the open that will affect the Canadians. But you are still going to be using Canadian dollars and using the same ticker, MMED. Did you see the news for NUMI? I did not. Do you have a comparable past experience to this uplisting? Pre-revenue company, new-ish sector, some hype. What is the most likely scenario for tomorrow in your opinion? That's a really good question. So a good example is just Canopy Growth. It's a marijuana company, and it got uplisted onto the Nasdaq. This reminds me very much of the Canadian marijuana craze. And it got uplisted, and it was a lot of hype going into it, and it was a gap up and sell the news event. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards that happening. So we'll see what plays out tomorrow. Sorry I was late. What's your prediction for tomorrow? I don't predict, by the way. I don't do price targets. I don't predict where a stock is going to be. What I try to do and what technical analysis is, it is forecasting. It is very similar to how a weatherman tries to, I'm not trying to compare myself to a weatherman, but how they try to forecast how the weather is going to be in, today, tomorrow, in 3 days, a week, 2 weeks. Same thing here. We're trying to forecast where or what the price is likely to do based on past history. So the forecast is, so to speak, a little bit, there's more confidence in it in the shorter term than it is in the longer term. Same with the weather forecast. 2 weeks out, not as good. But today, it might be fairly okay in terms of what my forecast is, so to speak. But just because, I say there's a 30% chance of rain doesn't mean that it is going to rain or it's not going to rain. It just means there's a 30% chance of it raining. So, sorry. I'm sure you must have discussed it and I missed out. So yeah, tomorrow we could gap up, and I think if we do gap up, it might be a sell the news event. And initial range is going to get established in the morning, and I'll be using that as my guide. If we break the high of the initial first 5-10 minutes, that means that to me is going to be like, hey, we're going to have a strong day likely, and we're going to keep moving up. If we break the low of day after the first 5 minutes and we head down, then I would think that maybe this might be our temporary top. By temporary top, it could be for a day, it could be a week, it could be a month, I don't know. Thanks, Amal. Appreciate it. Have you ever looked at Loeb Sciences and other psych play? I may have. GT. Let's check out the chart. Okay, so in terms of volume, this had like 80K traded today. I would not be close to this at all, just because there's no volume. So a lot of these smaller names, there's a lot of potential to make great percent gains because it is a penny stock and because people like me are not interested in it. There's potential to make a quick buck. But I will not be entering it just because I can't really use my capital. Like I don't want to go into this with a small position, and I don't need to. It's not for me. If you have a smaller account, maybe it is, and but it doesn't have the attention. It doesn't have the volume behind it, and it's honestly a lot harder to get in and out. And you need to look at maybe check out my bid and ask explained video. It kind of goes into how you can get really screwed with companies that don't have a lot of volume. Kron, that is a marijuana company. So Kron also got uplisted, yes. And yeah, Kron and Canopy did. Actually, a lot of them did afterwards. And even when, I don't know what happened with Kron. I actually don't remember if they had the sell the news reaction. When exactly would people start selling the news? Okay, so the news is the uplisting. Now, when do you sell the news? When it happens. So the uplisting is happening tomorrow. So the sell the news could happen tomorrow. It doesn't mean that it will. And here's the other thing. If everybody thinks it's going to be sell the news, it might be the opposite. So one of the things I do is I gauge Reddit to see what the herd is thinking, and the opposite is might be what happens. So you gotta be careful, because a lot of times the opposite of what the general public is thinking happens. And it's not trying to devalue the content on Reddit. There's a lot of great stuff on there, and I'm not trying to devalue that. Oh, you're right. CGC did get to NYSE and Chrono's Nasdaq. But for me, both of those are kind of the same standard in terms of Nasdaq and NYSE. Okay, let's check back in on our 5-minute oversold bounce. So let me make sure. So yeah, I just got sold out of my first scale out. So this is what I mean by what I'm looking for on MindMed. This is the first 5-minute oversold after a big move up, and I was expecting a bounce, and that's what we're getting so far. So now, my cost basis for this trade is below. It's probably moved down to here, and my stop loss is just below that. So currently, my position is up whatever percent, 7%, but my stop loss is just below there. But I'm probably going to move it up after this stream. So out of this trade, I'm guaranteed to be in profit and I won't take a loss on it. But this is essentially the play that I'm looking for on MindMed whenever it happens. And I don't know when. It could happen 4 days from now, but it will happen. There will be a 5-minute oversold, and I will likely be buying that. But it does depend on how the market's doing, and if there's some news in the world that says, hey, I should be careful, I might not do it. Or I might go in with a smaller position. Short term on TRIP. Okay, we're just going to go through the last these few charts, and then I do need to go soon. So TRIP, very similar chart to NUMI. We pushed up, but then we closed near the low of day. That's not that good. So we did gap up, and we did break our 40.5 level, but the fact that we didn't hold above it or even stay near it is a little bit of a red flag for me. But if MNMD continues up tomorrow, then TRIP might as well. So going into the hourly time frame, let's see. So we did have a triple bottom here today at 37 cents. So that's good. And our high of day is at 42 cents. So tomorrow, if we open within this range, these are two ranges I'm going to be looking at. If we break 37 cents, we could be headed lower. If we break 42 cents, we could be headed higher. And gotta remember, there's a lot of times there's fake outs where you just break by a penny or 2 pennies and you come back and go the other way, kind of to screw people over and kind of be like you. And yeah, it happens. Next one, RVV. My favorite ticker. Okay, so yeah, didn't really do much. I guess 6% is quite a bit. So 7%, and we have resistance at 52 cents, and then 61 cents. And do we have a triple? No, we broke. Okay, so 41.5 cents support. Going into the hourly time frame, there's a lot of volume the past 2 days, so that's good. Yeah, this is stair stepping up, and we have resistance tomorrow at 49.5. MYCO, got resistance at 48.5, support at 30.5. This is a fairly healthy chart. This is just going to follow along what MindMed and everyone's doing, but this is a lot better than TRIP and NUMI in terms of actually being able to hold its gains. So let's see how MMED was. Yeah, so like, see, this candle is still fairly green. We closed not near the high of day. This is not ideal. If we close at the high of day, I was going to swing my entire position and, like, balls to the wall. But now, like, for example, if something closes near the low of day, that's not ideal for making a swing type of entry. And that's why yesterday I pretty much kept my entire position. So because we closed at the high day within 1%. Sorry, that wasn't yesterday. Today's Monday? Jeez. Feels like it's already been multiple days. MYCO, so I don't expect 48.5 to break, but we can see what happens tomorrow. CYBN, right at resistance of 188. Did we break that today? Nope, double top at 188. So got to be careful. If it's a double top and we pull back tomorrow, that's a clear rejection, and that means we're probably headed down. And that means we're probably, yeah, we're probably headed down. So 188 is a key level we want to break, and then the next area is 223, and you're gonna have $2 psychological resistance as well, and then you got 260. And from the support side, if we do end up breaking 136, you got 120 as support as well. Weekly time frame, we are in a week. It's a week uptrend, but yeah, it can be considered a weekly uptrend. No, it's not actually. We're not in a weekly uptrend. We got to break 188 to be in a weekly uptrend. And if you break it by 1 penny, that doesn't count. So bulls got to prove themselves. So yeah, our 5-minute oversold play is currently playing out here. So this is literally an example that's happening in real time right now. That is what I'm looking for tomorrow or whenever it happens. What do I think about SOS? Is that a psychedelic company? 59% of MindMed volume was shorted today. Should I worry? I don't know if that can be a sole gauge of whether you should be worried or not, but in terms of a long-term position, or not a long-term position, in terms of if I was in a trade position, yes, I would be a little bit concerned, not because there's short interest, just because of where we are, and even I'm interested in shorting, but I'm not going to short it, but this is where I would be interested in shorting. We have all-time high resistance. We win 100% in 2 days. This is ideal conditions for someone to be shorting because you have a support level to work off of on the opposite side, which is your all-time high. What is your average daily return and how long did it take you to get those kind of returns consistently? So I actually don't know what my daily return is. I mean, like some days I take losses and I'm good with it, but I mean overall, like I'm profitable. How long did it take for me to get these type of returns consistently? I would say probably 5-6 years. The first, honestly, I've been profitable probably every single year, and some years barely, others very much so, and this year's probably my all-time high in terms of returns, and it's like I already got that in February. It takes a long time to learn, and it's not to learn technical analysis that takes long. It's learning the psychological aspect. Being able to trade without fear, being able to recognize when you're feeling greedy. It's the hard part is really the psychological aspect. Like your own mind is very hard to control. Like learning the technical analysis, you can do that in a few months, and the psychology is something you can read books, you can learn, but you really just got to go through it. And this is why it's very important in your first 4 years, if you're specifically trying to learn to trade, don't go in with everything that you have. Now, if you're young and I would say under 25, you don't have a family to take care of, and let's say it's like $10,000 or whatever it is, you can go balls to the wall and learn. Because if you lose it, you're young, you don't have people to depend on, if people don't depend on you, you can make those risks, you can make those mistakes, and you'll get back up and you'll be fine. But if you're a little bit older, or if you have something worth losing, use smaller sizes because you will likely lose money and you will make big mistakes. And you don't want that to wipe you out, because if you get wiped out, you're kind of done. You're never going to do it again, and you're going to be like, okay, I'm only going to do long-term investing, and that's it. So just take it slow in the beginning, and like how aggressive I've traded over the past like 6 months is like nothing. I guess I've done it in the past too, like when I was newer to trading, but now I have the skill set to be able to actually capitalize. Before I used to get scraped every single time. I would make a huge amount and I would give a lot back. Like now it's like I make a lot, give a little bit back, then make a lot, give a little bit back. And I miss out on a lot of opportunities, but it's better to not give back your stack. What platform do you use to get real-time prices? I use TradingView. But yeah, I actually don't pay for the real-time data just because I have it on my my broker. So I just use this pretty much for charting purposes, not to trade real time, because my trading platform has real-time charts and that's where I place orders. So that's what I use. Triple bottom doesn't mean bullish. It does mean bullish. When we have a triple bottom, it's an area of support that's preventing the price from going further down. So it is bullish, but I don't remember what I was saying at the time when I mentioned this. So sorry, George. Will Frankfurt market give us a heads up for tomorrow? It might. But I do think that as soon as the MNMD gets listed, it's going to completely dictate what any of the other markets are doing. SHRM. Okay, man, I gotta go. So, yeah, if you don't learn from your mistakes, taxes will be the biggest learning slab you'll get when you try to harvest capital losses. Yeah. No, but honestly, at the time in the beginning, it's very hard. It's very overwhelming, and a lot of times things are not going to work. And honestly, the past year has been the easiest to trade ever. So it's a good environment to learn in, but just realize that it's not always like this. Um, but yeah, it can change your life, and it's worth it. If you, I would say, stick with it. It takes time, but it can change your life. So I would stick with it. Okay, we're gonna go through SHRM because it's finally trading again. Okay, so here's the thing though. This has no price history from June 19th to now, so yeah, you really got to use the American ticker. Slap that F on it. And now you have price history. Oh man, this is a nasty chart. Oof. Oofty. Okay, so you got resistance at 81 cents on the American side, and you can't cross-reference this. So I guess you can do dollar conversion. So yeah, I mean, this is a nasty chart. I would probably ignore these two wicks and assume that they don't exist. And I would think the resistance levels are 81 and 106 and at $1 psychological. But yeah, this is literally just going to follow, I think, what MindMed's doing. But yeah, this is actually the first shroom stock that I traded, so luckily I didn't get slapped with the halt. Sorry, this one kind of sucks, but all right. I wish you guys the best of luck, and I hope everyone's profitable and making money, and I'm not afraid to take profit. I'm okay with missing out, and good luck to you guys. Peace.